So I'm here with Dr. Elissa Epel, who just gave a fantastic talk on blue states for healthy aging. Can you explain a little bit to our audience about what that is? What is a blue mind state?
Mm-hmm. Let me step back and say that the question that inspired our team, led by Alexandra Croswell, was the striking findings of similarities instead of differences across so many contemplative practices, mind-body practices. Clearly some are high arousal, but for all of the movement and meditative practices, they lead to similar benefits, both for emotional well-being, relieving suffering, stress and depression, as well as benefits to physical health, to cellular health, potentially reducing inflammation. And so we do a lot of research trying to compare and kind of in a horse race model, see what method might be superior. And that's not very fruitful anymore. I think we've realized as a field that the power of any active control group, because of expectations and our mind's amazing placebo effect, and because when you are interacting with another person, or especially a group, you're getting a lot of benefit. If it's a supportive, safe environment, that's very powerful. So instead of trying to understand differences between methods, which are small, we are trying to understand and lay out the commonalities. What are the common pathways that any mind-body practices have in common that can explain their very unique health benefits, many that we can't get with drugs. We don't have a good drug to reduce stress. It's just that fundamental. So we have put together a model that shows that while we have stress and relaxation, we have something even better than relaxation, and that is deep rest states. Deep rest states can be elicited when we feel socially safe, and we are safe. We're often in a secluded environment, or an environment that's shared with people doing the same thing, the same values, and often led by someone, although it can be self-led. And what blue mind states unleash are from the emotional signals of I am safe, it's time to relax, to the cellular signals of biological safety. So what happens in the cell when we're in a deep blue mind state, we can not get during any other time in our day that we know of, except for deep sleep.
It's so amazing. You know, I've been thinking a lot about, I feel like there's this ambient message in the world today that you are on your own. So it's like you are on your own in this economy, you are on your own with AI, you are on your own. And so in your talk, you talked about sociostasis and the power of feeling psychologically safe within a collective. And it just really makes me think that a lot of the stress and anxiety that we're seeing is from people not knowing how important these connections are. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on how we sort of start to communicate this collective psychological safety?
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think that we are so pressured to manage it all on our own and feel like we carry the whole weight, the whole burden of self-regulation on our own, that we are pushed toward those types of therapies, even individual therapy, when in reality we know from the data and from understanding what's been healing in every culture is not something you go do on your own. It's a ritual with a group. And so in all of our Western studies, it's very unusual to beat the support group. The support group is our active control group, and we know that that's very powerful. We spent 5 years testing mindfulness-based stress reduction compared to a kind of an education support group. And at the end of 5 years, we were disappointed to find very, very few added benefits. even though they were learning this self-regulation skill because of the power of the group. And now we're not surprised.
So would you speak a little bit about how you use wearables in your research?
Yes, we're just having so much fun now that it's so easy to study people at home in their natural environment, and that's where the action is. Like we bring people to the lab, we stress them out under standardized conditions, and that's useful to some extent, but to actually see how is someone's body responding to deep sleep every night for months. That's what we can do now. And we can say, is this intervention or that intervention affecting their deep rest states more or less? So we use the Aura rings. They tend to be so comfortable that people will keep them on, so we get the daytime, we get sleep. And we have been learning about factors that promote changes in our autonomic nervous system that we could never detect before we were using wearables. The added awareness for an individual is incredible. And so we are just starting to integrate what we've already learned from how to teach people a practice that they'll do on their own to how can we teach a practice when they actually are now getting the biofeedback of how, for example, their nervous system is responding or their glucose level. And so we're getting to a stage where we think we can really optimize interventions and empower people with their own biological real-time data.
And could you say a little bit more about the glucose level? You talked about that the other day too. I've been, as you know, I'm really into tracking what's happening in my body, and it seems like a lot of people are starting to be aware of their glucose levels. And so that seems like a ripe field for also introducing stress reduction. Could you say a little bit about that?
I think our fasting glucose levels and our fasting insulin levels are one of our biggest clues to our inner health. So we've done a lot of mindfulness-based interventions, particularly with people who have overweight or binge eating or are trying not to gain excessive weight when they're pregnant. And what we find is that, first of all, as a biomarker of chronic stress, that's the only one that goes bad very young that we can detect in a healthy community sample. So, for example, our chronically stressed caregiving moms are very healthy, no diseases, premenopausal, but the one biomarker that they show up on as being different from someone of the same weight is being insulin resistant. So the glucose level is the clue inside, not the scale and not looking at their weight. We're excited that we're starting to use continuous glucose monitoring so that people can actually see in real time what environments, what behaviors, what foods are affecting them.
Yeah. I do a glucose tracking, I've got an Aura, I've got a Whoop, and what else should I?
Well, tell me how that is. Does that feel overwhelming to have 3 data streams each day?
You know, they do different things. Like the Whoop tells me how much sleep I should be getting and how much deep rest, according to their algorithms, that I did get. And then the Aura is actually better at the activity tracking and some other things. And I haven't really started comparing the HRV yet because I just got it. Your book, The 7 Days for Stress Reduction, what I love about it is it sort of gives, something to do every single day to bring it down. And I think people feel so overwhelmed and stressed right now. What has been the response to the book that you've gotten from people?
Well, I only hear the good responses, and I have gotten so many emails from people who have said how much one of the strategies has helped them, and it's always a different strategy. So I think it just speaks to how different our lives are, how different things stress us out, and we have different mind habits. So, for example, for many people, realizing they can use their body to reduce their emotional stress is a relief because it's easier than learning top-down strategies like meditation or reappraisal. Changing our thinking can be very powerful. We need to manage our thoughts and realize our automatic thoughts are just thoughts and that we have a kind of a running self-critic. So just that awareness can help. but we might not be able to change our thoughts. And so changing our nervous system using hormetic stress, hot, cold, extreme breathing, exercise, those are ways to manage our emotional health as well.
Yeah.
And that gives people permission. Finding something that they'll do each day is really the key. So what's the best strategy for someone? What they're going to actually end up liking enough that they make it a habit.
Yeah, there's, I live close to a nice hike, and it changes my mood so much that I call it the happy place. And I tell my housemate I'm going to the happy place.
Oh, I love that.
And they know exactly where I'm going, just because I can just feel the difference in me. One of the things that you did today as well is sort of like the breath that you taught everyone, and that was just so relaxing too. And I think, to your point, so many people don't realize that we can just use our bodies. We can just use our bodies, and so that's we're very aligned on that.
And
So-
our bodies are our nervous system. It doesn't just end here. It's like there are 80% of the signals from our nervous system going from body to brain, and roughly 20% going from brain to body. So
yeah,
we need to realize that the body is one of our, most powerful ways to take control of our well-being, but also it's data, tuning into the body, not just kind of living in our head up, which is so easy for us to do, but to actually be listening to our body, our intuition, our feelings, asking ourselves, what is behind this tension that I'm carrying. But if we don't even ask, we're not even noticing that we're carrying tension, and it becomes unconscious stress.
Yeah. There's there's this thing, I think, it's sort of like we seem to think that we're just, brains in jars, and, our bodies are carrying our brains around. And so there's so much
Exactly.
involved, and it is bi-directional. I think one of the things that's really amazing that I love about this time period is that there's a lot of wisdom, like you said, from the different traditions over time where human beings have done things for a long time, and science and technology is finally allowing us to see and peer into what's actually happening in the body when this happens. So, anecdotally, people have said for a long time there's a mind-body connection, but now we know there is a mind-body connection. It's fact now.
And in
so
fact,
I think
even
that's really
saying,
exciting.
mind-body connection is dualistic, right? And we love showing the connection in different ways, but just the fact that they're, deeply interconnected, they're one, really, it's one system, is hard for us to believe.
How should we describe it? You're right, the language is really out there that's like mind-body. How should I say that instead?
Nicole, I'm going to rely on you with your brilliance to come up with that in an integrated way from your lived experience as a woman who's so self-aware, who is doing the self-monitoring. I think it's challenging. I don't think of any one term, but what's popular in health research is talking about the whole person and whole body approaches. Another clumsy way that I talk about it is the mind-body complex. It's this one complex system.
Yeah, I love the integration. And one of the reasons why I was asking that is just because language is such a driver of how people see things. And so I will spend some time thinking about what's a way to describe it that also can capture the imagination of people, because I'm such a believer in your work. I think it's so important, and so so I will take that.
Yeah,
I will take that on. So in the last moments that we have, what are the two things that you would tell people to do to reduce their stress?
Well, I think number one is realizing how much stress we're under. It's excessive, and it's most of us. And that really rules out the opportunity for true connection, for feeling the joy that's inherent in being alive. And the mundane joy of daily life is something we're kind of numb to. Whereas if we can slow down and become more aware of what we're grateful for and how rare it is to be able to connect with someone in a non-transactional way, not just through work or business, but just as a person. That's joyful. That's what makes people happy.
Yeah.
So the realization that we're under too much stress and we're not aware of it, and then realizing we actually do have ways to reduce stress within minutes. We do have much more control than we think. And then realizing that the unit of a day is the unit of our life. How we live our day is how we live our life. And so our biological aging is very tied up with our daily habits, our daily mind habits as well. I really appreciate how the BrainMind Summit focuses on really promising and often non-invasive cures for our brain aging and brain diseases. And at the same time is really focusing on our potential consciousness evolution. How can we really enhance our ability to live so deeply and transcend this prison of thinking that we're just disconnected individuals that have to fight for themselves, that kind of threat mindset. So bringing us in toward the focus on mindfulness and mind training and pairing that right next to true therapeutics is beautiful.